They are called Swedish meatballs. It's a strange thing, but every sentient race has its own version of these Swedish meatballs. I suspect it's one of those great universal mysteries which will never be explained.
No, it's a metaphor.
Why is everything around here a long story? Why isn't anything ever a short story, a paragraph?
Hello and welcome to Who Are You, a Babylon 5 watchcast hosted by two former strangers, now friends, who have gotten to know each other while rewatching a favorite show from their childhood, Babylon 5. I'm Xhafer.
And I'm Laura.
And today, Laura, I'm going to ask you, who do you want to play? We didn't have a clever for this, did we?
No, we didn't, but I thought you were on your way.
On my way. It was half in my head, and then I realized it had never been a thing before.
No, but you should do it.
Who do you want to play? Fan recasting here for the theoretical reboot, which we still have no news on as of recording. Mm-hmm. We're talking Dr. Franklin today. Since we're talking Walkabout is a very Dr. Franklin-centric episode, we thought it would be a good episode to do our recasting of Dr. Franklin. Do we want to quickly go over everyone that we've fan cast so far?
Yeah, do go ahead and share that.
Okay, I'll say the name who I casted, and then you say who you fan casted.
Okay.
And we'll just run through the list real quick. Yeah, pull up the list tab if you don't have it in front of you.
Okay.
So, Marcus, I had Henry Ian Cusick.
And I had David Tennant.
Zach Allen, I was feeling Grant Gustin.
And I was feeling Fortune Feimster.
Londo, Michael Fassbender.
And I had Mark Addy.
Jakar, James McAvoy.
Or Keith David.
Sinclair, I was thinking Christopher Jackson from Hamilton.
And I was thinking Donald Glover.
Talia, Judy Greer.
And I had Amy Adams.
And for Garibaldi, I suggested Bob Odenkirk.
And I had Tig Notaro.
Yeah, that's such good.
Yeah. So now we're looking at Franklin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you first, before we cast new people, thinking about our original doctor that we had on the show, Dr. Kyle.
Dr. Kyle, yeah.
So especially this episode got me really thinking about Dr. Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
And how much different do you feel like this plot, and I mean, not necessarily just the Walkabout plot, but like the whole addiction plot would be if we had Johnny Secca.
Yeah.
You don't think we get it at all?
I don't think this happens at all with that character.
Interesting.
With Dr. Kyle. In fact, Dr. Kyle probably wouldn't be on the senior staff.
Yeah?
I would go as far as to say that Franklin is kind of boisterous and has a habit of inserting himself in situations.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's led to his prominence in the senior staff and doing things. Dr. Kyle was a bit more back in the cut, I feel.
You think he stayed in his lane?
Yeah. I don't think he gets involved in war meetings and stuff. I think he just is worried about MedLab.
Yeah. I think you could do this plot with Dr. Kyle, but it would be a lot different.
Yeah.
Like, it is more, driven by... And we see Dr. Franklin working hard in MedLab, but I've pictured Dr. Kyle or, Johnny Secca playing Dr. Kyle working differently than Dr. Franklin. Not so much like the medicinal head stroking and all that, like maybe a little more serious. Like you said, a little less inserting yourself into other situations that maybe you didn't totally need to be in.
Yeah, I think Believers as an episode doesn't happen with Dr. Kyle.
Yeah, he's definitely more mature. And you get a different response to those parents, a different level of empathy.
You get someone who just read the whole fucking file at the start.
Yeah.
Avoid the whole thing.
That level of cockiness.
Yeah.
I think you could do a Stims addiction storyline with him, but it's going to be totally different. And he's going to react to Garibaldi differently. He's certainly not going to do some of the antics in this episode, I think. But yeah, I definitely felt, as I was thinking about recasting, I was like, I kind of just wanted to see what this show would have been with a different doctor almost. with a little bit less of that ego that Franklin brings to the table.
I do think in the reboot we get not a different Doctor, like an entirely different character, but I do think in the reboot that we don't get the kind of creeper side of Franklin that we see a lot of.
Yeah, for sure.
That's very rooted in the 90s and what was acceptable then.
Yep.
Compared
we
to
had
now.
more than one creeper Doctor character in different franchises all over.
Yeah. And so I have just completely stripped all of that from the fan cast.
Yep.
Any of those Cooper moments in my ideal reboot, in the reboot I hope we get, knock on wood, none of that is there. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to cast to it. And if I was, it would be a completely different pick than the one I'm going for.
Sure.
Probably. But when I think Dr. Franklin, I need someone who can pull off the acting caliber of I am so stubborn, I will win. But also they still have to be fallible. They have to be able to act losing. And I need someone who can shout technobabble loudly.
Yeah, that's very important on any sci-fi show, yes.
And then, as we see through the Sim Addiction, I need someone who can portray someone just a little unhinged. We need someone who can get a little crazy with it and still maintain credibility. And for that, keeping all of that in mind, I'm fan casting Sonequa Martin Green for Dr. Franklin.
Star Trek crossover.
Famously, some Star Trek alum for sure, current running, but Michael Burnham from Star Trek Discovery definitely has the ability to pull all those things off. And another character in her history who actually leans pretty heavily into it is Rhonda from New Girl.
Okay.
I literally today finished watching New Girl for the first time.
Fresh on your mind then.
Yeah, for sure it is. But her character is a super prankster type in that show, to the point of like getting married as a prank, signing divorce papers with disappearing ink. Like, shit is hilarious, but also way too much. And a lot of that I could see, just like her big smile where she's just like, gotcha. It'd be perfect, I think, for this unhinged kind of Doctor.
Yeah, I can totally see that too. I like that. And I like it when we flip stuff around a little bit on some of our characters. I chose kind of thinking on, I need someone who has a little bit of gravitas, because we're Doctor and doctors are serious sometimes, we got to have serious Doctor, but also Franklin gets some jokey moments. Everybody in the show gets some jokes. We get bits and stuff. And I wanted somebody that I was thinking about for serious moments and serious Doctor stuff, but also make some good jokes at me. And so I chose Kumail Nanjiani.
Okay.
So we got, a lot of comedy chops in there. We have Silicon Valley. The first place I think, consciously observed Kumail's work was on Adventure Time as Prismo. Prismo is a very funny character.
I have not watched much Adventure Time.
It's pretty good. I mean, I've watched it because I have a child in my life.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You wind up watching a lot of cartoons. And I think, actually, I picked another Adventure Time actor. I was feeling very similar vibes when I was talking about Keith David. Well, Kumail, I remember his voice being very distinct as Prismo. And then I kept seeing him everywhere. I kept seeing him in other stuff because he's got like a huge IMDb. And I was like, yeah, I could see him in those serious moments, but also like playing pranks, like you said. Play a prank on Garibaldi or something. I really think that he could bring that into the role, but probably also a high dollar actor.
Yeah, I'm not gonna worry about that.
We can't worry about price on this casting, guys.
That's what we're doing it for fun, because we don't know every unsigned, not on a major TV show actor in the world that these people are actually going to be.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking.
Okay. Well, there's a bit of thinking and a bit of self-reflection in today's episode, season 3, episode 18, Walkabout.
I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I thought this was a different episode.
Yeah?
I think I conflated this episode and another episode in my mind.
Okay.
And the way I had it conflated, it was more interesting.
The way you're saying, well, obviously it would be a future episode because if it was one
Yeah.
we'd already watched. So I won't ask for spoilies, but I am curious.
Yeah, I think it's not too far away, actually.
Okay.
I had envisioned it being a little bit different in the plot, so I was a little let down in certain parts.
Fair enough.
But how do we open this one up?
We open on Orlando bitching to Garibaldi about a Narn cruiser coming to help defend B5. Notably, this is not at a council meeting. Like, Londo has no one to complain to except Garibaldi. That's all he's got left. That is his one contact on the station. He doesn't even feel comfortable going to Sheridan. There is no council for him to go to. He can't go to any of the other ambassadors. He has to go complain to the chief of security.
Who is not impressed?
Right?
He's got a short fuse with this. And, it kind of feels a little exploitive by Londo. You know how they had the relationship a little bit earlier in the show, that they could actually sit together and have a drink, and Londo tried really hard to be Garibaldi's friend, but now he's kind of stepping on those toes, overstepping his boundaries.
For sure. After this, we move over to MedLab. Lita has arrived back on the station, and she's asking about Kosh. We get Dr. Hobbs, who's still filling in MedLab.
She's back.
Who's just like, I cannot answer your questions. Like, it's not even like I'm keeping secrets or respecting like HIPAA law, space HIPAA, but I just cannot physically, I do not know the answers to these questions you're asking.
Yeah, we just don't know enough about Vorlons, and we didn't have much Vorlon left, I don't think, to examine.
None, probably.
I wanted to make a note here about Lita's costuming. I noticed that her very impeccably tailored suit has a very, collared look to it.
Yeah.
Did you notice this?
Yeah, it's hiding those gills.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is, we need to hide some gills, but also that she's property now, right? She's the Vorlon's property, essentially.
Yes, and we've seen how they handle humans in their care, the humans that they decide to care for, and how they treat them. So it's a
very subtle nod to her actual situation. I was like, oh, that's not something I would have caught when I was younger.
Yeah, for sure. The new Vorlon ambassador's ship arrives while Sheridan is out on a walk.
He's on a walkabout, if you will.
This is the stupidest fucking thing. This might be the stupidest thing in this episode, and this episode has a bunch of stupid shit in it.
I turned to my husband and I said, do we need to be really talking about Sheridan's adrenaline addiction in this episode?
Right?
The background story.
Just need one more hit of that sweet adrenaline.
I feel the need for speed.
Yeah.
Well, he'll get another one in this episode, but it's not the one he's hoping for.
Yeah, he just needs to feel that space around him in order to feel alive. Needs to look a Vorlon ship right in the eyes as it comes in.
Yeah, the Vorlon ship is starting to dock, and then pops out, and then the ship effectively says hi. Some writing appears on the ship. Don't know what it says. JMS did not say what it says.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine.
The greatest mystery. I wish I knew. I like the color on this ship. It's distinct from
the reddish,
old Kosh.
purplish kind of thing. Yeah.
Old Kosh's ship was very green.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that the Vorlon ships are all kinds of different shades of something. It makes them feel more organic.
It does. We go to theme here. When we get back, Jakar is having Swedish meatballs for dinner and notes that every culture has their own version of meatball.
Same food, different place.
Yeah.
I read a ridiculous post online about this.
Oh, do tell.
Someone posits that the reason every culture, every spacefaring culture that everyone's encountered has some form of meatball is because the Vorlons spread them across the galaxy when they were interfering with the races.
Okay. All right.
In their younger stages of development. They left, it was when they came to Earth, they didn't just leave telepaths and they didn't just take Jack the Ripper. They also gave us Swedish meatballs. And it is a Vorlon delicacy that they wanted all the other races to be able to prepare for them or something. Like it's this whole thing. It's completely unhinged. It's the craziest fan theory I've probably ever read.
I was a little disappointed that it wasn't a dumpling reference because, like every culture on Earth has its own version of dumplings. Yeah.
I think that was a thing that was like talked about in like the news and stuff after this show had aired, because I also was like, wasn't this line about dumplings? So I looked into that too. And all the posts I could find about every culture on Earth has some form of dumpling. And it's just like that was all from like 12, 15 years ago that I could find.
Uh-huh. It was a big thing for a while. People talked about it. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to headcanon that came from this scene.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're discussing their ships.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, so it sounds like from Nicole, who's our cruiser captain, his assessment is that there's like 10 ships of any sort of size left. They're not all war cruisers. Some of them are other things. This war cruiser is still functional, but, kind of limping along. We have to repair it with other stuff. And Nicole is ready to strike back with these 10 ships, though. Even though we don't have much, he's ready to just
get out there and get it done.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean get blown up by the Centauri.
Right. Yeah, because...
Yeah.
Surprising amount of restraint from our boy Jakar. He's really showing that new leaf.
He's changed. Yeah. After this, the new Vorlon ambassador, who's the silent type, comes on board the station.
Yeah.
So I use his actual name throughout my notes. We do not find out his actual name. It's not said aloud in televised B5. But in all the alternate media, his name is confirmed as Ulkesh.
Oh, wow. I did not know this. Okay.
This is the same dude who was on Mimbar, the closed circle. And that was him and Kosh hanging out back with Valen forever ago, 1,000 years ago.
Okay. I did not catch that.
And we will see those two together in the movie that's coming up in the beginning, which is the prequel movie that came out between seasons 4 and 5. Kosh and Ulkesh are hanging out in a scene or two in that movie as well.
Wow.
So it's kind of like these are the two Vorlons that have been dealing with the younger races. That's just like their job.
Wow. That's crazy.
For like over 1,000 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say about Kosh.0 here.
We are all Kosh.
That.
That's good.
You get it? You like it?
That's good, yeah.
He really kind of reminds me, this costume piece, the encounter suit, the shape for some reason really reminded me of Crow from Mystery Science Theater. And so I was having a little trouble.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see that.
Taking him seriously at first. It's like, and Crow.
It definitely feels a little bit more sinister. The giant shoulder pads. Like, this is a Final Fantasy villain and I'm about to go beat up God. Like, that's the vibe I get from this.
Yeah, and the darkness of it, the purplish, bluish darkness compared to our very earth tony Kosh that we had. Definitely feels a little more sinister.
Franklin is hanging out down below in the Brown Sector Marketplace after this.
Yeah, he looks remarkably well.
I have a gripe with this episode right about here.
Okay.
Because Garibaldi catches up with him and he's all like, oh, how'd you find me? He's like, you're using your credit card, dumbass. Which is fair, right? But that should not be the answer. The answer should be a slight pan over to Marcus, who's been following him the entire time.
Like Marcus is all over down below?
Yeah.
And knows all these people?
We've seen him in this market a number of times. Him hanging out in this area of the ship has been the central part of many plots this season. No less than, I think, 3 off the top of my head. And he's just gone when Franklin goes and hangs out down there. He's not even in this episode. Like, if
Yeah.
you couldn't get the actor or something, or there's something else going on, I get it. But his absence from this episode, not only in the hunting down of Franklin, but also being there for him. They've had bro adventures. And it feels like they're trying to, like, and it's not like him and Garibaldi don't have a working relationship, but that's all they have. And it starts to feel like they're shoving something else in there when it should be, logically to me, I feel like almost all of this stuff with Garibaldi, it should be Marcus.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that.
One of my many gripes with this episode.
Yeah. My gripe that I had here was like, gosh, he's awfully like chipper and fine for someone who is supposedly dealing with his addiction. Like, and we don't see, I understand that, maybe you don't go through withdrawals right away, or maybe he's still using.
Well, it has been some time.
Yeah.
Because he left MedLab before all the Babylon 4 stuff and everything. So, it's been episodes. I assumed he was through his withdrawals at this point and was more interested in the soul searching required to deal with addiction.
I don't think this show skips that, though, right?
Does it?
That's a big thing to skip.
I don't remember. If there is more of this after this episode of this plot line, I do not remember it.
I think something else is coming. Maybe my memory is just adding things in. I don't know.
Okay.
I think something else has got to be coming. But you can't skip that. You can't skip the withdrawals in a addiction storyline.
And it should be the first thing,
Yeah. And it should be the first thing. And he's just awful chipper out here looking for himself.
Yeah. Talking about being a foundationist, Harry Seldon, psychohistory, the whole deal.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the other thing about this foundationist idea that he brings up here, that I think would have been different if you have Dr. Kyle in here. It would have felt different anyway. Like the idea of Walkabout, he's referencing Aboriginal tribes and stuff, and I don't know, it just felt very Western appropriation a little bit.
So there is a bit about foundationism that JMS talked about on the Usenets that I read. So the idea of it is this is a religion that springs up after alien life is discovered.
Yeah, because that's going to rock everybody's world. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a very recent religion, and it's kind of an attempt at just there are a handful of religions that are like this, like the Church of Universal Life and stuff, where it's just there's a ton of religions. All of them are right in their own ways, and in any ways they conflict don't actually matter because at their core, at their foundation, they are the same. And so it is about taking that and saying, okay, well, what is the foundational belief of all life on Earth? And then saying, well, this culture expresses it this way, this culture expresses it this way, and kind of just picking and choosing whatever works for you as an individual out of all of the religious beliefs that exist.
It reminds me of Unitarians.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just kind of doing what works for you and embracing that as your belief structure. So there's definitely, whenever you have someone who is not of a culture taking the thing that they like from that other culture, that's literally the definition of appropriation. So I'm not saying that it is right because it's his belief, but rather I'm saying their entire belief system is based upon it through the acknowledgement that everyone is correct. So it's not necessarily a colonial kind of appropriation, which is very different. I would say that it's at the very least a respectful appropriation. And even if that's not the vibe we get from Franklin, to be perfectly honest, he's very bad at giving off the respectful vibe when he does anything.
Yeah.
But as a religious belief set, that's the intention.
Yeah. I think it reads a little weird now that, we're 30 years out from when the show aired. And you kind of look at it, you're like, this reads a little funny. it wouldn't read as funny, I think, with Johnny Secca in that role. But
I think if Franklin being so bluntly disrespectful to everyone wasn't such a core part of his character, that this wouldn't feel the way it does.
Yeah. If we hadn't had Believers before this,
Yeah.
maybe it doesn't feel so weird. But so what we didn't even talk about what the idea of Walkabout was. You want to tell me what the idea is?
So Franklin says he's going to go for a walk, and he's going to walk and keep walking until eventually he metaphysically meets himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then when this happens, then he can have a conversation with himself to determine who he is.
Right.
So that is the plan here for his trip down below, is to go until he has to question who he is to the point where he can examine himself and determine the person that he actually is outside of, I run MedLab. This is my job.
Yeah. And this is what I'm thinking that we're actually going to get later, if I haven't just built it up in my brain, is we're actually going to get Franklin duking it out with himself.
I might be remembering that, or I might be remembering a fight scene with him on Mars that's down the road. Spoilers, sorry.
I don't know. Yeah. But I feel like there's something still coming. I don't think we're done with this plot yet. I know you said you think...
I hope.
You're feeling like it's over? I don't think it's over.
Yeah, he doesn't go back to MedLab at the end, so there's got to be more.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. So, if you were wanting to see Franklin talking to himself, I think it might be still going to happen, guys. At this point, you were like, yeah, I love this idea. Stay tuned. But we go back to Purple Kosh, and he's like investigating the crime scene, right?
Yeah, he scans around and he sees the energy left behind from Kosh's murder. He sees like the outline of Morden and a couple of shadows and Kosh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Alita arrives.
Yeah. And he force chokes her for not being there.
He is rude as fuck.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as force choking. I thought of it as like, well, that's like where the gills are. Like, we've seen, like, when she was doing this stuff with Kosh, we've seen energy flowing out of those, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it was just a, like, well, this is just, like, how they do things. And it was just, like, hurting her where her gills are, because that's, like, the Vorlon connection and part of her.
Oh, okay.
More so than him, like, trying to restrict her oxygen to choke her.
Yeah. He's yanking her chain.
Oh, he's a dick.
Yeah.
They're a dick. They use male gendered pronouns for him in the show.
That's true.
But a lot of the stuff after stops that.
Uh-huh.
So it's an interesting, I think that definitely in the remake, they're going to be gender neutral.
Right.
The Vorlons. Like,
remake, they're theys, right? All of the Vorlons.
They have to be. Yeah. Anyways, Ulkesh searches Lita for a piece of Kosh that may had been left in her and doesn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like a failure, and her boss is dead, and her new boss sucks.
Yeah. She's getting the worst of all worlds.
Yeah.
Because she really liked her old boss.
They had a thing. It was a weird thing, but they had a way that they worked.
Yeah. Sheridan meets with Lita and kind of asks how she's doing with this new ambassador.
Yeah.
And during their conversation, she hears old Kosh's voice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Put a pin in that one.
Yeah, save that. Just throw that in the back of your mind. Can we talk about what a dick Sheridan is here?
Always.
He only invited her to be all like, hey, so I'm planning this suicide mission and I want you to come on it.
Yeah.
Because especially at this point, as we'll see later when he pitches this mission, he isn't 100% intending this to be a suicide mission.
Yeah, he's planning like he's not going to come back.
Yeah. And so, hey, I invited you up here for some small talk and also to see if you were interested in dying with me. What an ass.
Yeah.
Pretend like you care for 20 minutes so that you can ask her to die with you. Just, ugh.
I'm so sorry your good friend died and your new boss is a big jerk. Would you like to go do something totally reckless with me because I have this need to feel alive. Like, oh man, Sheridan,
over.
my guy.
Yeah, it's all bad. We cut over to Franklin listening to KJMS in a club down below.
Yeah.
He wrote both the songs in this.
Oh, did he?
He did,
Okay.
but he can't write music. And so there's an anecdote of him, like, he writes the lyrics and he comes up with a melody, but like looking at sheet music, it is just Latin. Like, it just makes no sense. His brain can't comprehend it. Yeah. And so he gets someone and tries to like poorly hum them the tune.
Okay, this all tracks. It
Ropes
all tracks
in
for
some
me.
poor musical artist to actually do the work of writing the other half of the song. More than half, if we're being perfectly honest. If you've done any songwriting, the lyrics are less than half of a song.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, this scene started and my cringe reflex just went like to maximum, right?
Yep. So we have on stage Kaylin, who is our singer, played by Erica Gimple, who has a ton of acting credits.
Really? This is one guest star for some reason I didn't think to look up. Tell me about her.
Let's see. She is still acting. Like, her big break was playing Colo on the TV show Fame, which I've never seen an episode of.
Okay.
19 episodes of ER, 45 of The Profiler, 9 of Veronica Mars, all kinds of stuff in between, all over the place, going up to the recent Mayfair Witches show, which I think is like wrapping up its first season this weekend.
Wow. That's still working all right.
Yep. As of recording, I think it ends this weekend. Maybe it ended last weekend. I haven't watched it yet, but I intend to.
I mean, she's a real talented person. Like, she's a very good singer.
Yes.
She's very pretty. Really, really great actress in this episode. I can see why she's got a lot of, working credits.
Over in the war room, Sheridan tells him his plan to go on the suicide mission to check for weaknesses. And everyone in the room is like, you're a fucking idiot. What are you doing?
Smelling a lot of if coming off this plant.
Jakar's like, no, we'll send one of our 10 ships. Like, damn it, don't do this alone.
Well, and everyone points out that as far as they know, Lita is a P5, right?
Yeah.
I don't think Lita's a P5 anymore, right?
No, not for a long time.
You don't go hang out with the Vorlons for a year plus.
Yeah.
And stay a P5.
Has she shut Bester down? Have we seen that?
I don't know if we've seen them interact yet.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Point is, she's more dangerous than they think.
For sure. They may not be aware, but yeah.
We don't know exactly what we need. We know that Bester was on our ship, and we know he's a P12, right?
And the P12 made them go running.
Yeah.
So someone lesser can probably, at the very least, do a little something. And we don't know the P ratings of the Minbari that we see later in this episode as well.
Yeah, they don't really use P ratings to talk about alien telepaths.
No, the Minbari aren't a dick measuring race.
Solid point, yeah. So yeah, basically they want Lita to try to jam this ship on the White Star with a skeleton crew.
Yeah, and everyone's just like, no, we'll send other ships. And he's like, really? Because I'm feeling a suicide mission. They're just like, just wait a couple episodes. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So.
Delenn is going to send a Minbari cruiser with other Minbari telepaths. Solid plan.
Yes.
Like her thinking.
Backup telepaths.
She's not going to be on it either, I don't think. She wasn't on the ship.
She's not on the ship, nor should she be, nor should Sheridan.
Yeah.
Has like the de facto leader of the Army of Light right now.
Yeah. You don't need to send all of your leaders into one battle.
Like sending a tactician and a military leader into a battle. Yeah, sure. Sending them on a scouting mission, an intelligence gathering scouting mission, like, no.
Yeah, but Jakar does commit the cruiser. Conditionally, I guess.
Yeah.
As we find out.
Back in the club, Franklin commits a cardinal sin of being single. Don't flirt with anyone who is at work. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
It's never a good idea. Never.
Especially anybody who's working for tips.
Right.
Which
Especially.
presumably the band has a jar out, right?
Yeah.
You know, they're getting something from the club, like they're getting something to be
they get
there,
a cut
but
of some variety. Yeah. You don't want to.
yeah,
You don't want to do that ever.
yeah, he's definitely trying to pick her up, and it is gross. I wrote you in my notes a lot.
Mhm.
Oh, and the other thing I wrote you about was apparently moms are still saying that you should marry a doctor. You need to find a nice doctor to marry, honey. It's like, ew. We're centuries in the future, and moms are still saying that? Moms.
Some things never change.
Ugh.
Moms.
But she's interested. She's
Yeah.
interested in a doctor for some reason.
Yeah, she flirts back for totally normal reasons and not for any ulterior motive whatsoever.
Right. Just gross. I felt gross.
It's so gross. Jakar talks to the Narn captain, who straight up Ivan Drogo's the situation.
If he dies, he dies.
Yeah.
If
He
he
says
dies,
no.
he dies.
I bet the Narns have all seen all of the Rockies, right?
I hope so.
They feel like a people who
Cultural
would have seen all
exchange.
the Rockies.
Yeah. Like, you know what movie you're going to like?
Yeah, he won't go. He's refusing to go on this mission.
Mm-hmm.
And Sheridan's going to be on his own. And that's where we cut to, right? We cut to the White Star.
The trap is set while Franklin hangs out with his hippie friend who is totally reading his aura.
She keeps looking at him through her glasses of alcohol.
I'll find your soul. I've been around people this stoned before.
Yeah. It's a good time.
Garibaldi runs in and gives Jakar hell for the Narn leaving Sheridan high and dry.
Yeah. Garibaldi is very bold here.
This whole episode, he doesn't do a lot, but what he does is yell.
Yeah. That's very on track for Garibaldi.
Yeah, A-cab.
I kind of felt like he wasn't being so super fair. I mean, I don't know. I guess I wasn't totally clear on Jakar's place in the universe, specifically like any sort of Narn hierarchy. But I guess if he is really the last remaining leader, then maybe he does have the authority to make the Captain Nicole go anyway. But part of me was like, man, it's not his ship. Like, Nicole said no. There's no military chain of command anymore necessarily.
In things I don't say very often, Garibaldi is right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Narn cruiser that the station saved.
Yeah,
from the Centauri.
okay.
Like, they gotta go. There is a debt to be paid here by this
And
ship.
they did agree to defend the station. Like, I mean, they're submitting themselves a little bit in a way to Sheridan with just that. So, yeah, I guess he's got a solid point. And Jakar's going to sit on this for a minute and think about it.
Yep. Franklin, who we should remember is the son of a 5-star general, went to private schools. Dude did not grow up in any form of poverty. Gets all classist and shitty about sleeping with someone poorer than him.
He's really judgy about her lifestyle.
He is a piece of shit here.
Yeah. He gives her shit for drinking too much. This woman he just met, who is a singer in Down Below, doesn't have the same resources. And I don't remember if it's in this scene or a different scene, but he's like, you're too good to be here or something. And it's like, come on, dude. Don't.
That's not how it works.
Right.
Poverty cycles. Do they not teach poverty cycles on Earth anymore? Well, probably not on Earth during the time of this.
Yeah, there's no poverty on Earth.
There's no poverty on Earth. Anyone who's poor wants to be poor. There is no poverty. Ugh. Oh, it makes me so angry.
Yeah. And of course she kind of pitches a little bit for I just need
can you hook me up with and some Ambien? Just want some Ambien. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I mean, you got laid, so like butter my bread.
Right? Yeah. Lord knows he's not considerate enough to make sure she finished. Oh, I said it, internet. I said it and I mean it. Ugh.
So we
This
cut
guy.
to Lita and Sheridan
Mm-hmm.
discussing their nerves in hyperspace.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to know a little more from Sheridan about how he knew that Kosh had died.
Yeah. That was weird how you knew Kosh had died. You shouldn't have known that.
Yeah. He tells her the whole thing. You know,
Mhm.
I was having a dream about my dad or something and then woke up and knew he was gone.
Yeah.
And we start to see like something dawning on her face.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's getting it. But at the same time, Lanier has finally detected some shadows.
Yep. The shadow ship arrives, and Lita goes fetal, screaming when she tries to enter its mind.
Yeah. It's not an instant victory situation or even the same thing as with Bester where the ship sensed him and ran.
Nope, she is not having a good time. And when Sheridan goes to like help her up and check on her, when they touch, she sees Kosh's death in his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what gives her the focus and the anger to turn around and come back at the shadow ship.
Yeah. This makes me, you saying that she was angry makes me realize that when we saw Bester approaching these shadows, he was also angry. He was angry about something else.
Mm-hmm.
He was angry about the treatment of his fellow telepaths. But he had already some spark and some fire. So I wonder if that's part of why it was a different situation at first when the ship approached.
Anytime in this show we see a telepath reach the apex of their power, it is through a strong emotional state, and that is not a coincidence.
Yeah. I think that the book hinted that a little bit too. Now that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
We got to read that second book, man.
Yeah, so she focuses here. I have a small theory here, and this is something I read online, but I think the reason she reacts the way that she does, because it kind of, the presence of the shadow ship almost kind of instantly impacts her, because it's not even like she's interacting with it. It's she notices it and loses her shit, and the horror of it all. And like we will later get a description of what it is like when a telepath enters a shadow ship's mind, and it is not a pleasant experience as one would imagine.
Yeah.
But I think she is particularly sensitive to it because of her contact with Vorlons. She's kind of already used to opening herself up in ways that most telepaths probably aren't to the mind of an elder race because of her previous contact. And so I think when she reaches out to these shadow ships, they are much more easily able to kind of fuck with her back compared to any other telepath.
Yeah, they get soft underbelly versus hard scales. Like they get right in there into the meats.
Yeah.
I could see that. That's a good theory.
Because we don't even see like the Minbari telepaths like blink a couple of times.
Yeah.
You know, in a couple of scenes.
They have a strained look on their face, maybe. Yeah.
But it is not nearly the same. And I don't think that is stoic Minbari. I think that is her.
She's different.
She's different. Yeah.
Yeah. Because as she's got her strong emotion, she starts attacking the ship. We see that she's like bleeding from her eyes, which is always a horrifying vision, right? Nobody wants to think about that from their eyes.
Nope.
The White Star fires at the ship. They, in order to fire harder, have to take the jump engines offline. Oh no.
Takes them 20 minutes to turn back on. But they are able to destroy the ship.
Yeah, it like crumples up like a dead bug. Like we cut back to the station. And Franklin's new girlfriend is going through his stuff.
Yeah, raids his wallet.
Yeah.
And then Lita's like, hey, I'm going to wait 10 of the 20 minutes that I had to tell you. But by the way, they sent off a distress signal.
Yes.
Like, bitch, they could have been running. You can't be like that.
Should have been the first thing out of her mouth, really. Yeah.
You can't just drop that. Oh, you gotta.
And
they could have just been flying in another direction for 10 whole ass minutes.
Yeah, like even if it's not going to do much, you got to at least try.
Yeah. Like,
and it's not just
you pass out, like if you're about to pass out and you got time for 2 words before you're out, those are your distress call. Like, that's what you say on your way down.
they're coming. Like,
Yeah.
they'll get the point.
Yeah, get it.
And it's not just one ship that's been called. There's
4.
at least 4 in the area. Yep.
4 come out of jump immediately, and the White Star now starts to run. The Minbari cruiser comes out of jump with its 3 telepaths, which stops 3 of the shadow ships, but a 4th is undeterred. The Narn cruiser...
How serendipitous that we had 3.
Right. Yeah, the Narn cruiser jumps in, saves the day, fires on the shadow ship as Lita kind of tries to hold it a little bit, and then the combined forces destroy the second shadow ship. And with 2 shadow ships down, the other 3 are just like, peace.
Yeah. And crucially, the Narn ship that comes in, Jakar is not on board that ship.
No.
He is on another ship, and he's brought a bunch of friends with him.
Yeah.
So
the
we
Army
see
of
at
Light
least,
rolls up.
Yeah, 2 or 3 types, I think, that we see in here.
Most of the ships that were probably defending the station.
Yeah. Somebody better get back there real quick. But yeah, he's got everybody. And now the shadows kind of have a little more evidence of who is standing with Sheridan, so that's going to be interesting. But Lita also hears Kosh in this scene.
Here's Kosh again. Super
and
important.
Saying my favorite line.
Back in Kaylin's quarters, she passes out, drugs in hand.
Yeah.
As Franklin takes her to Med Lab. Dr. Hobbs is handling the situation just fine, as Franklin learns he is misinformed about everything.
Yeah. He's completely misread the situation. He thought he had an overdose on his hands.
Yeah. And we get our 90s drugs are bad moment. The big twist, she's not an addict like you would expect out of a storyline in the 90s where she'll die from her drug overdose. She actually needs these pills and was in such pain that it caused her to collapse. The only high she needs is singing. Tasha Yar would be so proud.
She can't afford these pills anymore. Dr. Hobbs tells us that. She's out of money, so...
Yeah, and we've confirmed once again they have not figured out socialized medicine in 200 years, which just... Fuck, we have it now, guys. Come on. We could, it's so easy. We could just do the thing.
We're just like this close. We got so close. And then...
I mean, real talk. The real problem is that we'd be gutting something like 15% of our economy by doing it. That's the thing that no one wants to talk about. Yeah. That's why. Because too many rich people are going to not be rich anymore.
Yeah.
So we can't do it because this is America.
We have whole companies built around being a middleman. But anyway, yeah, she apologizes for stealing his identity in order to buy her desperately needed medicine. And as Franklin is leaving, presumably to go back on his walkabout, because he grabs his walkabout bag, he asks his fellow colleagues in Med Lab to just give her whatever she needs.
Yeah, just whatever pills she needs, just give them to her.
Yeah.
Like, well, why don't you do that for everyone? Only the ones that you sleep with? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Bad luck, my dude. Oh boy.
The White Star gets back to Babylon 5 and Lita tells what'd you say, Kosh.0?
Yeah.
That's so good. I tried for 5 minutes to think of a good one and I couldn't think of one. So
well, you got like actual lore history to bring to the table.
Yeah, but that was my backup plan. I wanted a joke. I just didn't come up with a good one. I really like Kosh.0.
Kosh.0. There it is.
Thank you for being funny, Laura.
Well, it doesn't happen often, so don't rely on
That's not true. That's not true at all. Lita tells Kosh.0 that Sheridan might have the piece of Kosh that they're looking for.
Yep.
And we get some more radio KJMS to credits.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Laura, I feel like we've both expressed our displeasure at this episode.
A little bit.
But we're at the point of our show where we need to numerically rate. That's not a word. Where we need to numerically rate the episode on a scale of Babylon's 1 to Babylon 5.
Well, I'm not a fan of this one. I don't think I'm going to give it the lowest rating. I don't think I'm going to give it a 1. Because I do... Oh, wow. I liked the lore parts of it. Where we're exploring the telepath thing. And I'm a sucker for the stuff with figuring out what happened with old Kosh. So I give it a 2 for those parts. But all of the Franklin stuff just brings nothing to my table.
They could have done so much more beside a 90s drugs are bad riff. And you know what? Maybe she needed the pills actually and wasn't an addict. In 1995, that might have been a revolutionary twist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
97.
It probably was.
It probably was, but it just feels boring, to be perfectly honest. And I don't know if that is through the modern lens, if I would have felt the same in the 90s. If I'd have been like, oh, they subverted that trope. It's all like, you subverted that trope in the weakest possible way.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not often, like, it usually takes me like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get through an episode. I think I've said this maybe about 1 or 2 other episodes before too. Sometimes I just got to pause and go do something else to come back and write more notes about an episode. And this was one of those. I did my notes over 2 days for this episode.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, part of it was I did have an internet outage for 4 hours at home when I started. But I was able to spin that into something a lot more positive than this episode. So I got a lot of work done on Admiral Harper's spice rack.
Good.
I completely redid all of the networking in my house. Changed the location of like my modems and everything. Did up my network cabinet.
You're like, well, it's down anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I cleaned up all the cabling in my entertainment center, which I hadn't done. Everything was still kind of like hanging out from when I had moved in. So I like cord wrapped and painted to match my wall and stuff and did the whole thing.
Yeah. Think about this episode at all while you were doing that.
And then when the internet came back on, I watched New Girl.
Yeah. You're like,
because I couldn't come back to this episode. This episode is trash. And it's not even a fuck this episode trash. It's just trash. Because the fuck this episode at least is making me feel something, whether or not I want to feel it. This is just nothing. This is blasé. This episode is the jar of mayonnaise of Babylon 5.
And I really hate the trope that, it did show up a lot back then. It still shows up now of like, oh, we're going to use this woman to teach this man this thing, this woman and her tragic life and her tragic story. And she's just there to provide...
poor. She does drugs.
Yeah, she's just there to provide some character development for the male. And I hate that.
It's fucking terrible.
Like, there's lots of men who feel like women are just here for their character development because this is the kind of media that they consumed for a long time.
Yeah, I used to know people like that. They've all been removed from my life.
Right. Always good to do a little curating, prune that.
But speaking of people we know, next episode.
Ooh, yeah.
Season 3, episode 19. Gray 17 is missing. We've got a guest coming on.
Yeah. From?
Gray 17, the podcast.
Go figure.
We've reached out to our friends in the League of Non-Aligned Podcasts, and Gray 17 is going to be on. In a couple weeks, we're going to have Yum Yum Podcast on for Shadow Dancing is the episode they'll be on with us for. And then we've got a couple week break and like our season recap stuff. So we're not going to have anyone on for there. We're going to hit season 4 and Ben's going to be joining us for an episode to help, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, be the unofficial launch of his and I News podcast, which we had our first real serious sit down for on Wednesday. Start recording and getting that ready to go. So awesome. That'd be cool. And then we'll see. I don't know if you are a Babylon 5 podcaster and you're listening to this episode and you want to join us for an episode, just reach out. We'd love to have you. Trying to mix it up a little bit, have a little fun, especially this whole set of episodes coming up here is also great. And so if I haven't reached out to everyone because a lot of you are first time watcher podcasts and you're not where we are. So I can't ask you to help with that. We don't want to ruin it. We don't want you to watch ahead like that. But yeah, that's what's going on. So that's cool. Grey 17 is missing next week. Delenn agrees to lead the Rangers, but Marcus must protect her from a deadly threat. Garibaldi investigates a secret station level.
I love a good mystery. I can't wait.
If this is the episode I'm thinking of, it's a lot of fun, and I like this episode.
Yeah.
But it's been a little while. But we'll talk about it more next week. Think we're just getting one person from Grey 17, but I'm not 100% on that right now. So
yeah, we'll find out when we get there.
Yeah. Details are ambiguous because they are currently ambiguous, but we're working out that stuff soon. So
yeah.
But thank you for listening. Thank you, Jeremy Siegel, for our lovely theme music. Really appreciate you. I just sent you a Facebook friend request so I can ask you to make the theme song for the other podcast.
Awesome. Yay. We love more work for Jeremy.
We do love more work for Jeremy. And you can find more of Jeremy's work at jeremysiegel42.bandcamp.com.
And thank you to Angry Duck Time Machine on Instagram for our podcast artwork.
Mm-hmm. Thanks to you for listening. Go ahead and throw us an email, whoareyoub5@gmail.com. You join our Discord community where we'll talk about stuff all the time. Everyone just put in their quiz results from
always fun
a number of weeks ago. When you heard that's when we're recording this now. So that was fun to see everyone sharing their quiz results with us. Oh, and thank you, Aaron, for editing our podcast. I didn't forget you.
We could never forget you.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week, Internet.
All right. Bye.